Most people think older men are still looking for the same things they chased in their younger years: youthful beauty, financial success, or some picture-perfect romance. But here's the surprising truth. After 60, what truly moves a man's heart isn't about outward appearances at all. It's about three deeper feelings, three emotional needs, that quietly decide whether he opens his heart to a woman or walks away. These feelings don't just shape his dating life. They shape the way he sees his future, his happiness, and even his purpose in this stage of life. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why some women effortlessly connect with men later in life, while others struggle to spark more than a polite conversation? The difference isn't luck, and it isn't about competing with younger women. It's about understanding what truly makes a man feel alive again, even after retirement, even after heartbreak, even after he's convinced love has passed him by. That's exactly what we're exploring today. So if you're curious about what really draws men closer after 60, and how these three feelings can change everything, stick with me. And before we dive in, do me a quick favor. If this resonates with you already, tap that like button right now. It helps more seniors discover conversations like this, and who knows, it might just help someone you care about find love again too. Let me introduce you to someone who might feel surprisingly familiar. His name is Eldric, a 68-year-old retired Navy engineer living in Florida. Eldric isn't a movie star, a millionaire, or the kind of man who walks into a room and turns every head. He's a quiet man, the kind you might pass by in the grocery store without a second thought. But behind that weathered face, behind the easy smile he gives to strangers, is a story that reflects the lives of countless older men today. Eldric was married young, like many in his generation. He built a life, raised 2 kids, and poured himself into decades of hard work. But by the time he turned 55, his marriage had unraveled. Divorce left him sitting alone in a too-quiet house, unsure of what the next chapter of his life could even look like. At first, he thought time would heal the loneliness. But as birthdays passed and his children moved farther into their own busy lives, the evenings began to weigh on him more than the days. Picture this: Eldric sitting out on his small porch as the Florida sun sinks into the horizon. Neighbors walk their dogs, couples take evening strolls hand in hand, and laughter drifts faintly from a nearby park. For Eldric, it's a reminder of what he no longer has. He sips his tea slowly, pretending it's just another evening, but deep down he wonders, is this it? Is this what the rest of my life will be? Quiet sunsets, empty conversations, and memories of what used to be. What makes Eldric's story relatable isn't the details of his career, or even the fact that he divorced. It's that gnawing question so many people over 60 ask themselves. Is it too late for love? That question can creep in during the silence of a long night, or in the awkwardness of eating alone at a restaurant where every table around you seems full of companionship. And for Eldric, those questions became heavier as the years ticked by. Then something shifted. At a friend's urging, Eldric decided to dip a toe back into dating. Not with the wide-eyed hope of a 20-year-old, but with the cautious curiosity of a man who's seen enough of life to know that nothing is guaranteed. He didn't expect fireworks, and he certainly didn't expect to feel young again. What he wanted more than anything was connection, though at the time he couldn't even put that desire into words. And this is where Eldric's story takes a turn. Because what he discovered wasn't the obvious, surface-level answers we often assume men are chasing. It wasn't about appearance, wealth, or status. No, the very first thing he realized, something that shocked even him, was that the most important feeling men crave after 60 is not what most women think. Feeling number 1. Being truly understood. Eldric's first step back into the world of companionship was not some grand, romantic gesture. It happened at the most ordinary place. His local community center. A friend had dragged him to a casual seniors gathering, one of those potluck dinners where everyone brings a dish and half the people forget what they signed up for. Eldric showed up with a store-bought pie, nervous, uncertain, almost wishing he hadn't come. That's where he met Maribel. She wasn't the youngest woman in the room, nor the flashiest. What caught Eldric's attention was something different. The way she asked questions and actually listened. Their first conversation wasn't about careers or achievements. It was about the little things, her trouble with arthritis in the mornings, his stubborn back pain after mowing the lawn, the joy they both felt when their grandchildren visited, and the quiet fear of becoming a burden as they aged. For the first time in years, Eldric felt something stir inside him. Not attraction in the way he remembered from youth, but relief. Relief that someone wasn't rushing past his words or nodding politely while their eyes darted elsewhere. Maribel looked at him with genuine curiosity, as if his thoughts and experiences mattered. That simple moment of being heard carried more weight than any compliment or flirtatious smile could have. This is where many women, and even men, misunderstand dating after 60. We assume attraction must be built on appearance or on rekindling the spark of youth. But for many older men, the greatest spark is being seen for who they are now. Society often makes men invisible once they pass retirement. They're no longer the provider or the leader. Some feel dismissed as irrelevant, just another face in the background. That invisibility can feel heavier than loneliness itself. And so, when a woman truly listens, when she values a man's stories, even the repeated ones, when she shows patience with his pauses or interest in his perspective, it awakens something inside him. It says, "You still matter. You're still worth knowing." That feeling, more than any appearance or status, is what draws men closer. So let me ask you, have you ever felt invisible after 60? Maybe at a family gathering where the younger ones talk over you, or at a doctor's office where you feel rushed out the door. Share your thoughts in the comments, we're listening, and you might be surprised how many others feel the same way. For Eldric, this realization changed everything. He came to understand that it wasn't grand romance he missed most. It was the comfort of being understood. And yet, his journey didn't stop there. Because what came next had little to do with age, aches, or shared experiences. It was something far more surprising. But the second feeling might surprise you even more, because it has nothing to do with age at all. Feeling number 2, playful joy. When Eldric first started spending more time with Maribel, he expected long talks, quiet dinners, maybe a few movie nights. What he didn't expect was to find himself standing on a pickleball court, paddle in hand, completely lost on the rules. Maribel had insisted they try it. "It's all the rage with folks our age," she laughed, and Eldric reluctantly agreed. The first few minutes were clumsy. He swung too hard, missed the ball entirely, and once even tripped over his own foot. Instead of embarrassment, though, something unexpected happened. They both burst into uncontrollable laughter. At one point, Maribel doubled over, wiping tears from her eyes, saying, "We're terrible at this, but at least we're terrible together." And in that moment, Eldric felt a spark he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't attraction in the way society sells it. It wasn't about looking younger or pretending to be something he wasn't. It was the sheer joy of play, the kind of carefree fun he thought belonged only to childhood. That laughter, that silliness, made him feel more alive than any serious conversation or romantic gesture could have. This is the second deep truth about men after 60. They want to feel light-hearted again. For decades, many carried the heavy weight of responsibility. Jobs, bills, parenting, caregiving. Retirement and aging can sometimes feel like trading those burdens for new ones. Health worries, financial concerns, the loss of friends. Life can start to feel like a long list of seriousness. That's why playfulness becomes so powerful. When a woman brings humor, spontaneity, and fun into a man's life, it reawakens his sense of vitality. He doesn't want to feel like the old man being pitted. He wants to feel the thrill of laughter, the silliness of trying something new, even the joy of failing together and not caring. At this stage of life, joy is not just attractive, it's healing. And for most men, it outweighs beauty, status, or any surface-level quality. Now let me turn this to you. What's something playful that still makes you feel young? Is it dancing in the kitchen, trying out karaoke, gardening barefoot, or maybe even a sport like pickleball? Share it in the comments, You never know who you might inspire to bring more playfulness back into their life. For Eldric, pickleball wasn't about winning points. It was about rediscovering laughter, about remembering he still had the capacity for joy. And that joy built a deeper connection with Maribel than any fancy dinner ever could. But here's the thing. There's one more feeling that runs even deeper, and it's the one that often determines whether a man truly chooses to open his heart for the long haul. And the third feeling. This one is the game changer. The reason many men choose one woman over another. Feeling number 3. Emotional safety. There's one part of Eldric's story that he rarely spoke about, even with friends. It wasn't the loneliness of divorce or the quiet nights on the porch. It was the fear he carried inside. He worried that if he opened his heart again, he'd be judged. Judged for the lines on his face, the softness around his waist, the slower pace of his walks. He worried a new partner might compare him to the man he used to be, the strong provider, the tireless worker, and see only what had faded. Finances weighed on him too. After retirement, the world of flashy dates, expensive dinners, and impressing someone with material things felt out of reach. He feared that would make him less than in the eyes of a woman. It was easier in some ways to stay alone than to risk rejection for simply being who he was now. That's when Maribel made all the difference. She didn't expect him to be anyone but Eldric. She laughed with him when his knee made a creak every time he stood up. She never hinted that his modest retirement budget was a problem. She walked slowly beside him, not rushing ahead, as if the stroll itself was more important than the destination. For the first time in decades, Eldric felt he didn't have to perform, prove, or pretend. He could just be. And that's when it hit him. The third feeling men crave most after 60 is emotional safety. Not the safety of locked doors or guarded wallets, but the safety of knowing you won't be judged for simply being yourself. After years of carrying responsibility, many men long for peace, not pressure. They want a space where they can rest emotionally, where love feels like home instead of a test. This truth often surprises people. It isn't about chasing passion at all costs or competing with youth. It's about finding someone who accepts the wrinkles, the quirks, the slower mornings, and even the limitations that come with age. That acceptance is the difference between a relationship that drains and one that heals. So let me ask you, do you agree that emotional safety is more valuable than looks at this stage of life? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. You might discover just how many people feel the same way you do. For Eldric, this was the turning point. Once he felt understood, once he rediscovered joy, and once he finally felt safe, something extraordinary happened. He realized that love after 60 didn't have to be a lesser version of what he'd known before. In fact, it could be richer, deeper, and more meaningful than anything he had experienced at 30. When Eldric finally felt these three emotions together, being understood, joyful, and safe, he discovered that love after 60 isn't about going back. It's about creating something new, something better in the years ahead. Eldric's story didn't change overnight. There were still quiet evenings, still moments of doubt, still the familiar ache of wondering whether he was too old for love. But slowly, almost without realizing it, the loneliness began to loosen its grip. The porch that once felt like a place of solitude became a place of shared sunsets. The laughter he thought he had left behind resurfaced in the smallest, silliest moments. And the weight of pretending to be strong all the time began to melt away, replaced with the freedom of simply being himself. He discovered that companionship at this stage of life is not about grand gestures or youthful passion. It's about presence. It's about having someone to share the ordinary with. A walk after dinner, a trip to the farmer's market, even just a hand to hold when doctor's visits feel overwhelming. The transformation wasn't just that Eldric found someone. It was that he found himself again in the process. The broader lesson is clear. For older men, choosing a partner isn't about looks, money, or social status. Those things may have mattered in younger years, but after 60, the equation changes. What matters most are feelings, those rare, irreplaceable emotions that breathe life into the later chapters of our story. Being truly understood. Rediscovering playful joy. and finding emotional safety. When those three elements come together, it's no longer about chasing the past. It's about creating a new future that feels richer and more authentic than ever before. This is why so many men over 60 will quietly tell you that they aren't looking for someone to impress. They're looking for someone to share life with. Not someone who makes them feel young again in the superficial sense, but someone who makes them feel alive again in the deepest sense. So if you're stepping into dating after 60, or even if you're already in a relationship, remember this. Love at this stage is not about competing, proving, or pretending. It's about building a space where warmth, joy, and safety live side by side. And when those three come together, age doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the feeling of waking up each day knowing you are seen, valued, and accepted just as you are. Eldric's transformation is proof. What began as quiet doubt became a second chance at love, one rooted not in appearance or wealth, but in the power of connection. And that possibility isn't just his. It's waiting for anyone willing to believe that love after 60 can be the most meaningful chapter yet. So, what have we discovered through Eldric's journey? It isn't complicated, but it is profound. When it comes to dating after 60, the things that truly matter aren't the things we often assume. Men aren't choosing based on youth, glamour, or wealth. They're choosing based on three powerful feelings: the comfort of being understood, the joy of shared laughter, and the safety of unconditional acceptance. Think about that for a moment. When a man feels that someone genuinely listens to him, when he's able to laugh without fear of looking foolish, and when he knows he won't be judged for the wrinkles, the slower pace, or the changing realities of life, something incredible happens. He opens his heart in ways he never thought possible. And this isn't just Eldric's truth. It's the quiet truth of so many men and women stepping into new relationships later in life. But here's the part that should give you hope. You don't need to reinvent yourself to find love at this stage. You don't need to look younger, act younger, or compete with anyone. You simply need to create the feelings that matter most, the kind that make another person feel seen, joyful, and safe. That's where love flourishes. That's where connection grows deeper than appearances ever could. And now I want to hear from you. Which of these three feelings do you think matters most? Being understood, playful joy, or emotional safety? Drop your answer in the comments below. Not only will you share your perspective, but you may also inspire someone else who's searching for encouragement today. If this spoke to your heart, even just a little, please take a moment to hit the like button. It may seem small, but it helps spread this message to more seniors who might need the reminder that love is still possible. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to our channel, Senior Relationships After 60, because we have more heartfelt conversations, real stories, and fresh insights coming your way. Don't keep this to yourself. Share it with a friend who might be sitting in silence, wondering if their time for love has already passed. And remember this: love doesn't end at 60. It begins again in a deeper way. Every chapter of life offers us a chance to love differently, to love more fully, and to love with greater meaning. So, keep your heart open because your best love story may still be ahead.